All right, so this week I've got something, it's a bit of a variation of a technique I did a couple years ago on creating kind of embedded text in stone. It was actually looked like it was carved in stone. And in this tutorial, we're going to take it in a different direction by adding some text and then having it look like it's cracked, aged into the stone and everything like that. And in the previous tutorial, I had gone ahead and created the texture from scratch. But in this video, since we're concentrating on the actual cracked and the lettering itself, I'm going to go ahead and use a texture that I've got from iStock Photo. And it's this very cool texture of this stone wall right here. And what I need to do first is I'm going to go ahead and create a duplicate of this textured layer. You'll notice here in the layers panel that it is, in fact, it's on its own layer, and the background layer is filled with black. And in fact, let's go ahead and make these icons a little bit bigger so you can see. So there you can see the texture is here and the background is black. So I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate of that textured layer, just pressing Command or Control J, and it goes ahead and creates a duplicate. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visibility of that duplicate layer for the moment because I'm going to reselect that original layer and go and do a levels adjustment. Let's go to Adjustments and go to Levels. I'm just going to make this darker by going and selecting the middle, the gray slider here, highlighting that number and simply setting it to 0.5 or 0.50. And you can see it makes the texture considerably darker. This will come into play in just a moment. So let's reactivate the duplicate layer and select that layer. I want to go over here and grab the horizontal type tool from the toolbar and go ahead and click inside the document to set a text layer, as you can see right there. Now, since we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Photoshop this week, I thought it'd be appropriate to go ahead and do something with the number 20. Would be kind of cool. So let's go ahead and scale this up and make it pretty big in my layout here. And I'm going to go ahead and center it in the document, do a horizontal and vertical alignment there. There we are. Now, obviously I'm not happy with the font, so let's go ahead and double click and highlight the text and choose something else. Let's go into the menu here. I think I'm going to go ahead and use one that I've already used before, and that is right here somewhere. This is the problem when you have way too many fonts in your menu. Rockwell Extra Bold. There we go. So nice and bold numbers there. A little too far apart. So I'm going to put my cursor in between those numbers, hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows and hit my left arrow, and it will close in the spacing, or just the kerning if you want to get technical. And there we have it. So let's once again go ahead and align that to the center of the document, and there it is. So what I want to do now is actually load this as a selection. So I'm going to go ahead and into the layers panel here and hold down the Command key on the keyboard, and I can just click right on the text icon, that text layer icon, and it loads the layer as a selection. I'm going to go ahead and turn off that layer for the moment, and let's reselect that duplicate layer of the texture that we have here and go ahead and click and activate a layer mask. Now, when you have an active selection and you want to hide what's in the selection, hold down your Option or Alt key as you click on the layer mask icon, and it will look proper. There we go. So it's knocking out the middle area, revealing that darker texture underneath. So it's almost there. So now what we're going to do is actually add a layer style to this layer to give it a little bit more texture. So I'm going to go ahead into the layer style menu here, and we're going to first choose Bevel and Emboss. Now, want to keep it off to the side here so you can actually see the effect as it is coming into shape here. And we got the Bevel and Emboss selected. I'm going to go over here into the Structure section and change first the style to Outer Bevel. And we're going to change the technique to Chisel Hard. And the depth, we're going to push all the way to 1,000, all the way up. Looks pretty cool. Now for the size, you could probably drop this down to maybe 3. And it makes that beveling a little bit less intense there, a little, or not quite as thick, I should say. And I want to add another thing. I want to add a drop shadow, and we'll just kind of maneuver that shadow out. It gives me a little bit of depth, kind of giving me a sense of distance between this foreground texture and the texture underneath, which is darker. So that's what that shadow is doing for us. Looks pretty good. So again, this is the layer style. We can always go back in here and make adjustments to this if we want to. So for now, I'm going to go and click OK. And that's looking pretty good. It's kind of looking like it's carved in there, but it doesn't look you know, it looks like it was machined out of that text. You know, it doesn't look like it's like it got any decay or anything like that. So we need to add cracks and a little bit of wear to this. And this is where the fun part comes in, because we are working on a layer mask still, not even touching the original textured layer. This is what I meant by being able to create this effect completely non-destructively. So with the layer mask still selected, I'm going to go and first apply a filter to this. Let's go to filter, and we're going to go to distort and choose ocean ripple. And what you can see right here in the preview, what it's doing is that it's really kind of distorting that text and giving me kind of a, you know, really rough edge to it, like it's really been aged for some time. But it is applying this to the layer mask. You'll notice we're selected on the layer mask and we're applying this filter. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and look what the edges of our text have now looked like. Now it looks like really rough, really carved, like almost like it was hand carved out of the stone there. Looks pretty cool. But we're going to take it even further. Going to go and select the brush tool, and let's get a relatively small brush, about a 5 pixel brush should do fine. And we're going to open up the brush panels, or the brush options here rather, and make some changes to the brush. So let's go into the shape dynamics, and what I'm going to do here is in the size jitter, I'm going to take that up to just about 25%. So there's a little bit of slight variation in the sizing of the brush there. Maybe you go a little bit higher. Now down here under the size jitter, we have the control setting, which is currently set to pen pressure because it is detecting that I'm using a pressure sensitive tablet. But in this case, I do not want it to respond to pen pressure. I actually want it to do a fade. So it will, when I start to brush, it'll be at full size, and then it'll just kind of fade off to, it kind of tapers off depending on the pixel number you set inside the setting here. So the default is 25, and you can see that's really small. It's not really what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to increase this to 200. And you can see the streak is a little bit longer, and it's a little bit roughed edged because of that size jitter setting we've got applied there. So now, again, working still on the layer mask, painting with black with our new brush, we can go into the corners of this and really start to give this kind of a cracked look. In fact, we'll zoom in here so you can see what's going on. Just go into the corners and just brush in any kind of place you want it to be aged or cracked to give it that sort of aged look to it. And notice I'm just starting inside the area that's already masked, inside the letter, and just going outward, and then the crack will taper off like it would if it were a real crack in there. So we'll just go in here, and you can obviously, I could spend a tremendous amount of time going in here and adding a whole bunch of these cracks, but I do believe you get the idea. Now what you want to do is notice that the cracks are all the same sizes. I'm just kind of randomly just drawing them out from the letters as they're coming out there, but they're all the same size, they're all the same width. So what you can do is go in here and just simply, or the same length rather, go in here and just drop the setting down, or the fade setting down to maybe 100, which will be half the length. And then go in here and maybe you've got some small cracks that are coming off the bigger cracks. And once again, enhancing the realism that this is a stone texture that's cracking over time, giving you that look. And that's of course using the fade brush. Again, remember, we're on a layer mask, so we can go in here and grab maybe the lasso tool and draw a selection over a particular area of a letter and fill that with black, and that will appear to be all roughed up like it's a huge section missing over there. Maybe we can do the same thing over here. Sorry, fill that with black, and black is knocking out and giving us the look that it's kind of like it's just kind of falling apart. It's just a old number just cracked into the surface there. Just draw these little cracks in here, and you can have so much fun just applying this texture. And again, we have done nothing to the original texture file. So if I zoom out here, notice here in the layers, if I temporarily turn off the layer mask by holding down the Shift key and clicking directly on it, we've done nothing to the texture. There it is in its original state, and we've done nothing to it. We've simply applied a layer mask. So I think one last thing I want to do here is go ahead and unlink the layer mask to the layer, put it in free transform mode by pressing Command T, and just give it a little bit of a tilt. Because it's it's supposed to be aged and cracked and everything like that, so it would be kind of tilted and wouldn't really, it would almost look like it's just completely falling apart there. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, obviously, I could go ahead and probably will go ahead and spend a little bit more time applying some more cracks to this, but I think you get the idea of how you can take advantage of taking a simple texture file, one simple texture layer, and then going through these steps and applying a layer mask and just having fun applying this effect with the cracks and everything like that, completely non-destructively using layer masks.